All right, we'll call the meeting to order.
I need to record it here. Okay.
All right, we'll call the Holiday Island City Planning Commission meeting for 9/14/2021 to order. It's 3 p.m. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lynn, roll call.
Commissioner Keys?
Here.
Commissioner Doom is here. Commissioner Elwood?
Here.
Commissioner Graves?
Here.
Commissioner Mills?
Here.
Commissioner Pittman?
Here.
All present.
I declare a quorum. We have an agenda that Lynn put out. Any questions, corrections, additions to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Ken made a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Minutes of the August 10th special meeting. Lynn distributed those. Are there any questions or additions or corrections to those minutes?
I read them. I make a motion we approve them.
Ken made a motion that we approve the August 10th meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jerry seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. No standing committees, no special committees, no old business. We can move on to new business. A review of public record ACA 1456-412 powers and duties of the commission. Lynn, you wanna?
From our working documents, insert a couple copies of these statutes. 1456-412 talks about the powers and duties of the commission, the planning commission that we're a part of. And I highlighted the first three sections that say, generally, the Planning Commission shall have the duty and function of promoting public interest in and understanding of the long-term coordinated municipal planning. Section B is the comprehensive studies. The Commission shall prepare a work program and make comprehensive studies of the present conditions and the probable future growth of the municipality and its neighboring territory. And finally, C is highlighted, the planning area map. The Commission shall prepare and maintain a map showing the general location of streets, public ways, and public property, and the boundaries of the area within the territorial jurisdiction for which it will prepare plans, ordinances, and regulation. This map shall be known as the planning area map. And the rest of that statute talks about other responsibilities and duties that we have and the things that we have to accomplish. So that's why we are going to talk about that today.
Okay. Is that it for that?
That's all I have for 412.
As we get further into the agenda items, this will probably come up again, but I'm still a little bit unsure as to what our as a planning commission, or maybe more generally with the city, what our authority is over the territorial planning area that's outside the city limits, or what responsibilities those property owners would have to the city. So as we evolve in our knowledge of how planning, area planning goes, we'll, I'm sure, come up with some definition of that.
I could add a little bit if you like.
Sure.
My understanding is that we would create subdivisional or subdivision ordinances that talk about the minimum requirements that subdivisions would have to have, and that'd be like the size of streets, the minimum size lots, just the way the infrastructure basically is put in. And those ordinances would require then someone who wants to develop something outside our boundaries but inside the territorial jurisdiction would have to get approval from the Planning Commission before it moves forward. So that's my understanding. It's in subdivision type ordinances.
Yeah, because, in general, the city can't tell somebody, what they can and can't do with their property. But specifically, if they do plan on developing it, then we can impose some degree of standards so that if that territory if the city becomes responsible for that territory eventually by annexation.
Especially if they're gonna tap into sewer and water.
Yeah, then, we would be assured that the development was done correctly. I mean, we can anticipate, once we publish the planning area map, that, we could anticipate that a property owner would come and ask us, what does this mean to me as a property owner? So, okay, moving on then to, the next item. Review of public record ACA 1456, 413 territorial jurisdiction.
So in the packet of working documents is a copy of that statute, 1456-413, the territorial jurisdiction. I highlighted several sections that apply to the conversation that we are going to have today. In the first sentence, it says the territorial jurisdiction of the governing body of a municipality for the purposes of this subchapter shall not exceed the limits stated in this subsection. B, if the territorial limits of two or more municipalities conflict, the limits of their respective territorial jurisdiction shall be aligned equidistant between them, or as agreed on by the respective municipalities. And then the next few sections are about cities that are larger than us. So down in section 3, it says cities having a population of 8,000 persons or less shall have a jurisdictional area that does not exceed 1 mile beyond the corporate limits, and shall not exercise any zoning authority outside the corporate limits. And then finally, section 5, and the first section, or first sub, it says the Planning Commission shall designate the area within the territorial jurisdiction for which it will prepare plans, ordinances, and regulations. So that's one of our duties that we have to do once we define the territorial jurisdiction.
Okay.
Is that not a conflict there? Under 3B, it says shall not exercise any zoning authority outside the corporate limits.
Well, that's the consternation that we had. What does that mean? And it talks about zoning when we say R1, C1, that kind of thing we cannot do, but we can do subdivision ordinances that talk about infrastructure and placement and that kind of thing. Can't do land use, but we talk about other things.
Okay.
Okay. And moving on to a discussion regarding the territorial jurisdiction for Holiday Island specifically. It fits into the maps.
You want me to go ahead?
Yep.
Okay. So in your packet, there was a suggestion of a resolution that has some text on it that I went as far as I could. And after that first page of the resolution is several maps. The first map that has at the top, it says 1 mile statute limit of the territorial jurisdiction. It illustrates the conflicts with the municipal boundaries of Beaver and Eureka Springs. The blue line is a 1 mile extension of our boundaries, and it totally encompasses Beaver, and it comes across a portion of the city limits of Eureka Springs that's illustrated on this map. Can't quite see it, or it's so small on my map, but down this bottom right-hand corner is a little triangle. That's the intersection that's just right before the railroad bridge, if you're going down Highway 23 to get there, but that's also part of their city limits. So there is a conflict with them, and so we look back at the statute, and it says that we have to establish a line that's equidistant. So I'm flipping the page to the next map. The Arkansas Geographic Services was very helpful in coming up with that equidistant line, and she did some measurements where I put the two red arrows. Those are the closest points between the municipalities of Eureka Springs and Holiday Island. And she measured that distance and cut it in half, and she said in her mapping software that's 594 meters. So she took that same style and extended the borders 594 meters around Holiday Island and Eureka Springs, and that's what the blue and green lines represent. And in the old days of data analysis, I learned a process called least squares analysis. It's a line that best fits data. And so it just drew itself that if we drew a line between these 2 points of intersection, we would have the best fit line of equidistance between us and Eureka. So that's what that red bar represents. The other conflict that we have is the jurisdiction around Beaver. And she, in her software, she can only come up with like 1,000 feet because of our borders as close as they are along the river. And so there's a blue line around Beaver and a purple line, or excuse me, purple around Beaver and blue around Holiday Island. But that doesn't quite work because the borders, we have other distances that are greater than that, but still there has to be an equidistant line between them. So the next helpful map that I had was the following page. And it says it's the 1 mile limit arcs of territorial jurisdiction. That's the blue line around Holiday Island. And there's a little box there that says 1 mile. And then the green line is the equidistant line between Beaver, Holiday Island, and Eureka Springs. So with her software or with her measurements, she thought that that angle coming out of Beaver down to the section line would be a good starting point for dividing the space between Holiday Island and Beaver. Because beyond that, the borders of Beaver curve away and Holiday Island terminates and goes into a wider space. So coming up with an equidistant line between us and Beaver would be kind of a crazy shape, but we chose this for reasons of uniformity and easy to identify, so it drops down that section line. The angle line that comes up to meet it is the same line that you found on map number 2, just extended to the section line. So I just took and projected that red line down to the section line so that the angle is the same, and you can see that it crosses the arcs of Eureka Springs in the same points. So it's the same line projected. Because that line falls on a section line at the southern end of that angle, then I'm suggesting in our discussion, I'm presenting this as a suggestion, that we project our territorial boundary to the east to meet the next section line and go north on that section until it crosses Highway 23 and then follows Highway 23 all the way to the Missouri border. That's just a suggestion I put on the map so we have some place to start our discussion.
Yeah, I was wondering what that big loop was.
Okay. So it's a straight line east and then straight north to the intersection of the section and Highway 23, and then it follows 23 to the border. That's the presentation that I had so that we could talk about where you think we might put the territorial jurisdiction of Holiday Island. Let me add before we start. I did contact via email the mayors of Beaver and the mayors of Eureka Springs, and I got a response back from Eureka Springs thanking me for keeping them in the loop, that I basically invited them to this meeting to join us face-to-face or via Zoom. And he forwarded that to the to the Planning Commission person, and she noted that she replied to my email already. And what they gave me was a copy of their planning or their zoning map, not their planning area map. So I don't have even information from Eureka Springs if their planning area includes a jurisdiction beyond their borders. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday morning, I got an email back from the mayor of Beaver, and she said she would get me a copy of their planning area map for whatever it is. I mean, that's kind of the word she used. So I think they have to do some digging for theirs. Both of those municipalities have planning commissions, and they have planning area maps based on their community code, so they should exist someplace. So in light of that, this equidistant line between us and Eureka, I don't see anything wrong with it as directed by the statutes. The only quibble, if you will, or conversation might occur with Beaver in the fact that we picked this diagonal line and then a straight line south on the section line. That might be a bit of a conflict.
Would we not have to wait and see if they have jurisdictional territory defined? Well, to see if there was a conflict or the two overlapped. I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, we just read it in the statute. and it's paragraph B. If territorial limits of two or more municipalities conflict, the limits of their respective territorial jurisdiction shall be a line equidistant between them, or as agreed on by the respective municipalities.
Yeah.
So
I know I read that someplace.
yeah. So our attempt is to draw a line that's equidistant, so we don't necessarily need to have a meeting of the minds between our boards.
And, you know, once we decide what we want, then we'll have to take it to Beaver and to Eureka Springs and get some sort of document to say that they bought into it.
In my research, I had a copy of an ordinance that was passed between the city of Conway and the neighboring Mayflower, and they had several maps, and it showed that the equidistant line went like this, and they drew on a line that was pretty close to it, and they had an agreement between their parties in ordinances passed in both commission or in both councils that they agreed to that new line. And part of the agreement was we would not move our city limits beyond it, and not attempt to do any zoning, but ordinance control. So there is sample language you could use for such an agreement.
You know, I can make at least one comment about this map, and that's that eventually, in order to make this map official, we have to write a description of the boundaries, just like we did for the city boundaries, and just like I did for the ward maps. And by following the convention that Lynn did, it gives us a reasonably easy way to describe it. You know, like starting at the state line, follow 23 down to, you know, the point on the section line, and then follow the section line, and then somehow he'd have to use his least squared terminology to define the...
Jennifer at AGIS told me that she could tell me those dimensions of those intersection points, that it was so many feet. She could measure that for me, and we could put that in our description. It may not be precisely what I drew here, but it would be a description that we could follow legally.
Yeah, GIS is just so great to work with. I've never worked with anybody better. They will provide whatever map we want. In fact, they've already provided several.
I think this is the 7th or 8th map that they did for me.
And they will provide us data that we would need to create a position or a boundary description. What they will not do is write the boundary description for us. Right. So we have to take the data from them and then write our own boundary description, and you know, take it with the map and file that with the county eventually, once we pass an ordinance adopting it. So that's one of the reasons why we picked Highway 23. I guess the other comment I could make is that even though the law would allow us to go beyond Highway 23, and in some on the east, and in some cases on the south and west, to go beyond the boundaries shown here too, you know, we have to ask our question of, you know, ask ourselves, why would we? You know, if we have some input into what's going on everything on this side of 23, you know, I think we're pretty well covered, and you know, anything south and west of here is all, you know, steep hills and deep valleys, and probably isn't ever going to be developed into something that we would be concerned about. So so we're not utilizing the full extent of what we could as far as jurisdictional.
Is that yellow line? Is that Highway 23?
The red line.
No, yellow line.
If you're looking right about here, Ken, it says Highway 23. It comes to this sharp. Go ahead.
Yeah, it goes right through the middle of the blue, and that on the right side of that is the market area, right?
I'm gonna come over over to your side.
Yeah, I don't have a yellow line on mine.
Yeah, there's a yellow line there, and it looks like it's highway. This Highway 23 right here, right?
No. Here we go. This is north, and here's Highway 23.
Yeah, I understand
Okay.
the red line, but not straight line.
Okay, the red is here straight east to this section line, straight north to where the section crosses 23 and then follows 23.
And this line going back through here
Yes.
is Highway
That's-
23.
There you go. That's correct.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, come show me then.
All right.
'Cause I'm-
He's talking about the
I'm
east-west
lost
curvy line beyond that. That's Highway 23 where it passes through.
I'm
This,
thinking
he's
Mass
pointing to
Highway.
this. This is Highway 23.
So,
Does this red here represent 23?
Yes. This is the intersection of the section line in 23, then follows it the rest of the way to the border.
Well, I thought 23 went between us and the bluffs, and I don't see
It
it
does, it's
cutting
right here.
through.
the bluffs is that.
Bluffs is
Oh,
right here.
that's right there?
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay,
This is the big curve coming up to the entrance.
okay, I
Would
get it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should put a north. I
I
should
get
put
it.
a star on there to tell you which way is
Atkins
north.
refrigeration and all that stuff right through there would be outside our jurisdiction, right?
I'm not certain where they are on this curve.
Well, I think they'd be someplace where,
They're on the east side of 23.
But are they before the section line? I think they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
What did he talk about?
Atkins?
Atkins? Oh.
Refrigeration, those buildings that are there along 23.
there's some.
To answer your question, I'm not certain, Ken. What I did was do this analysis or this assumption, not looking at any properties so that there would be no bias in what I was doing, but just what kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, this map is really faint, so even for you, if you hold it to the light, you can see there are some boundaries there. But I just took an image of it, so I lost a lot of the resolution, couldn't zoom in on it. The constraint that I have is I don't have any PDF software. I just have viewing. I can't edit it, so I can't make things large.
So it goes back and the red line intersects with the green line, and that's your proposed boundary then.
Well, the straight north line is a section line.
Yeah.
Where the section line crosses 23, I thought that'd be a good point to be able to describe
Yeah.
for a legal description.
Okay.
Now, following 23, some thought that I had also was we can draw that jurisdiction anywhere along 23 because our 1 mile is outside that to the east.
Oh, yeah.
I thought maybe we should pick for the purposes of surveying the edge of the right-of-way on the east side of 23. So that way we might have some influence on access to 23 that's still in our jurisdiction. Not the center of the highway and not the right-of-way on the west side, but the east side right-of-way.
That
Of
kind
the
of makes
highway.
a lot of sense, actually.
Because that would be on anybody's map. The right-of-way would be marked and be survey points for properties and all that. So it wouldn't be a new line down
Is
the
there
middle of the
any
highway.
section line that goes all the way down?
Well, the section line, you can, if you hold it just right with the light,
I see
it
some
crosses
there.
outside our 1 mile.
I see one just on the top, just a little bit to the
Yeah.
right.
And right in here, there's a section line, but it's still outside our mile.
Yeah,
So the next section line in was this one that I marked.
yeah.
It's
right.
fully inside our jurisdiction.
And since the border on the north is Missouri, we don't go in there.
It chops us off. We would have nothing we could do there.
Okay.
So across the road from state line, we would have no influence whatsoever. And coming around on the other side of the river or the Table Rock didn't make any sense to have any jurisdiction on the other side of the river on the northwest side.
One thing, I would think it would make sense if we could get rid of that little dip end where it touches the corporate limit there. If we could expand that out a little bit
Okay.
to the green line or something even.
Well,
Because that gives you no clearance with that.
right.
corner.
It's right there on our property. Or
Yeah,
inside our
nothing
city
there.
Now.
Ain't gonna be nothing there, that's steep hill.
yeah.
It's
that
a
is-
sharp hill. And
Yeah, that's where the curvy.
the
part
terrain is really tough to build on.
Yeah.
Some of the research I ran into, or when I read
That's where the
other,
Top Golf is gonna go.
Okay. When I read what other cities had done, their planning area map and their jurisdiction were things that they anticipated may become part of the city limits in the next 25 years. So, west side of Highway 23, some of that property out there is relatively flat. It'd be good places to build. In fact, there's already a residential section about halfway up there that's already been developed by somebody. I don't remember the name of it, but there is a set of houses and some roads there now. You can see the lots.
Something called Lake Table Rock Estates or something.
Sounds right. So, that's why I put this recommendation together. It's nothing set in stone, it's just for our conversation.
But this would catch that subdivision off of County Line Road.
Well, as far as 23 goes, yes. Yeah, it would take it all the way down to the corner where that,
Right, there's that, right in there, there's all those houses and barns and stuff.
yes, that would be in our territorial jurisdiction.
What about this space right here?
Well, it's on the other side of the lake, the other side of the river. So I thought, developing the other side of the lake and river as part of our city limits would be, I don't know if we're interested in doing that or not.
Oh, you can't see the lake from there, huh?
Well, you can, if you flip back to map number 1.
Remember, we put our...
This is the 1 mile limit that we could go to.
Right.
So it goes all the way around and a mile past our city limits at that one point.
But you don't want...
Oh, I see what you're saying. That is that.
I can't
Vision across the lake, isn't it?
I don't have a crystal ball, but looking 25 years in the future, I don't know that they would be part of our city.
That's Oak Landing across there, and
I think that's a misguided adventure. I think there'd be more trouble with it than...
Well, I doubt that we would be able to engineer a bridge to cross it to make it easy for them to get into our city. So a lot of reasons I didn't think we would put it on the proposal.
Yeah.
I would, if there's any land in this area here that we might want to have more influence over, it would be on the northeast corner there,
Okay, here's
Once
one.
you get around the curves and the land flattens out a little bit, there's, there is more, ability
potential.
for somebody to develop stuff up there.
So what is the harm in going out to the 1 mile limit over on the other side of?
No harm whatsoever.
I mean, what is?
As long as we can describe it.
Yeah.
And when I talked with Jennifer at AGIS, she says, I don't think I can describe arcs for you. It's a pretty long tape measure to find center and swing.
Well, you could do section lines
Right.
all the way down that.
But there isn't a section line inside our boundary. That blue line is about 1/3 into that section 12. I'm looking at the first map because it does have section numbers on it.
Yeah, I'm not talking township boundaries, I'm talking section lines, right?
Right.
Okay.
This jurisdiction line is not set in stone anyway.
The 1 mile is.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go under that, you can go up, and if you get to be 150,000 people, you can have 3 miles or something. So, but I meant, if we wanted to expand out to the one mile limit at a later date, we can do that.
Yes, sir. In fact, in the looking at the Conway, I have 5 different versions of their planning area map, spread over 7 years.
The trick is, if you do it now, you don't have to worry about something slipping by that you wanted to have some measure of control over.
If I'm understanding what Lynn said, we have no say over land use unless somebody's making a subdivision.
Well, it's subdivision ordinances that cover and regulate what can and can't happen in your territorial jurisdiction.
But aside from that, that jurisdiction line doesn't buy us much.
other than, I'm not certain. Rather than speak out of the class, I'll just say I'm not certain. We have no control if we don't declare it. We have some sort of input if we do. And that input is what we have to learn about.
Yeah, and, you know, like a lot of laws, they're written more with large municipalities in mind than they are small towns. You know, if we were Fayetteville, we would want tight-fisted control over what's going on next door to us, but here, you know, the chances of somebody coming in and doing some major development.
The only thing I can see is if you look at the, you know, Cherokee Village and some of those, I guess, and Hot Springs Village, you know, you get outside of the city limits of those communities, and there were some things that grew up along the highway, you know, on either side of them.
Well, the perfect example is in Eureka Springs, up on Passion Play Road. As you're leaving, cross off 23 and start heading towards Holiday Island, you come to a couple of churches, and around one bend it says you're leaving the city limits. Right there is a corral with sheds and
horses and cows.
Right, and then right across the street is a trailer park and
yeah. Well,
I think that's the kind of thing that we can do some control of. I'm not sure.
Well, one thing I mean, it's not direct control, but if someone wants to put a subdivision outside the jurisdiction, but want us to provide utility services, I mean, we would have some control over what's done.
We would annex it.
Well, we might do that, but they couldn't expect to tap into our utilities if we can't provide, you know, a 200 house subdivision or a manufacturer that needs, you know.
I don't see subdivisions being as big a problem as add-on commercial areas. And
Well, yeah.
What I'm thinking of in Iowa is always
we don't-
confinement hog operations or cattle or chickens. Would a hog building be okay?
There's
I would
enough land out
say-
there for a Walmart.
I would say we would not be able to prevent somebody from putting up a chicken house because we can't exert zoning authority
But land use,
over that area.
yeah. Shall not have shall not exercising any zoning authority outside the
Right.
corporate limits.
So we can't really tell people what they can and can't do with their property. But if they are gonna do something, then maybe we can influence how they do it.
Dan, I just noticed that we have a person on Zoom, Kylie, who is the city planner for Eureka Springs. She's
Okay.
participating via Zoom.
Okay,
She says she's happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
okay, good. Anybody have a question?
Kylie, if you can hear me, we really do need to have a copy of your planning area map. I thank you for the email that you sent us, but it was zoning for what you did for control inside of Eureka Springs. But your planning area map, what it might show on it for jurisdiction. Because our concern is about this equidistant line between our communities.
She's currently muted, but I did ask her to unmute.
Okay.
Oh, she says
I
I'm
guess-
not aware of a planning area map.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
That's the only thing the way that Holiday Island is currently laid out, in which nobody seems to think there's any way in hell of changing plot lines or, lot configurations and stuff. There's no place on Holiday Island where you can put up a large building. Like when we built Community Church, we bought 8 lots, And it still shows that church sitting on 8 lots. So we, you know, and so that's why I think, you know, that there, you know, people talk about a school, et cetera, you know, where would you put a school? You'd have to buy, so you're not gonna find enough contiguous. So if anything like that came up, you're gonna have to combine some existing area, or you're gonna go outside the city limits and use these few areas that we got here. So
if the need is great enough, I would venture to say that anything is possible. So I wouldn't.
Well, they keep telling.
I wouldn't make a blanket statement that.
Well, I've been here 30 years and we haven't been able to combine a damn lot yet.
Well, that's because there's been no authority to do it. Now we're trying to establish that authority.
Okay.
So.
Kylie says, we do have subdivision requirements encoded, but there is not an explicit planning area map attached to that. So I think this leaves room to collaborate. Oh, and she said before that, I missed one too. Before that, she says, I can
That's the
scroll
only
it down.
thing I see.
Well,
You know.
Okay, I think that this is a great opportunity to collaborate and something in place that works for both Eureka Springs and Holiday Island. Great, me too.
Okay.
That, you know.
I think somebody, maybe Ken said earlier that, you know, we don't have just a once in a lifetime shot at this planning area map. But we do have a need, or at least we think we do, have a need to do things in order. And, you know, eventually we want to get to the point where we can have a zoning map and then have building codes and things like that. So, you know, this is step one in that journey. So maybe at this point we don't need to really worry about encompassing every acre that we might, you know, wish 25 years down the road would have been in the planning area map. Go ahead and adopt a map that seems to make sense for today's situation, and then move on.
Can we adopt this one without hearing from?
I think we can, because
getting additional feedback from Eureka and Beaver.
I would think technically yes, and then if we had to modify it in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we would do it.
Okay.
But that way we would have a planning area map.
Okay.
Because the green line that I drew, the angle between Beaver and Holiday Island, and down south, and the angle between us and Eureka are equidistant lines to the best of my ability to draw them.
Okay.
So those would satisfy the statute requirement. The red line is the part that's subject to whatever we would do with it.
Okay, so
it's well within our 1 mile jurisdiction.
Okay, so then you draft ordinance, what?
Okay, so the document basically is the language that leads us to the point where we come up with describing the sections and how we describe the boundary.
The legal description.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, just one parting comment here. The process going forward is going to be, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Planning Commission is going to pass a resolution adopting a map, and not an ordinance.
No.
Okay.
The city has to pass the ordinance.
So this is the city.
Once the Planning Commission adopts the resolution, then, you know, we can take that to Beaver and to Eureka Springs and say,
okay,
this is what we plan on moving forward with. Do you have any problems with it? And if they don't have any problems with it, then the final step would be the city council passing an ordinance adopting this as the planning area map.
Right.
Okay, I found the resolution. I was looking at the ordinance.
Okay.
So from what I read, or from what we said we were going to do as a planning commission to take actions, we're going to do all of our work through resolution. And I included in this text the recommended ordinance for the city to consider, because it also says that we recommend plans and ordinances and regulations to the city council. That's why it's incorporated here.
Okay. And so, okay. planning map includes territorial jurisdiction.
That's correct.
But we can't do this today, you gotta fill in all.
Right,
this.
we can't approve a resolution today because we needed to discuss where we want to draw the line, and then I got more work to do. So we'll have to have another meeting to approve the resolution.
You're gonna have to.
In theory, we can all nod and approve.
Well, you're gonna have to rewrite this because it shall define as territorial just within the maximum area. Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha, man.
All right, and then the very last page was just a sample of what there needs to be a letter block on this map where officials of our city and planning commission and our recorder treasurer sign it to make certain that it's an approved document, so when it gets filed with the county, they'll know that it's all well and done. So I'll adapt that to the map, whatever we come up with when we're done.
Are we talking, can we talk about the resolution?
Sure.
I just have one minor
Okay.
grammatical change.
All right.
The second whereas,
Okay.
the HICPC has determined that it shall define,
Oh, sure.
okay?
Thank you.
He left that in there for you to catch. It's an old engineering trick.
So is define its, does its need an apostrophe someplace?
It being the planning commission has
Yes.
determined that it shall
Looking at.
The second whereas, where it
define.
says has determined that it instead of is.
You only need an apostrophe when you're doing
That
is.
it shall.
Okay.
Yeah. I just kinda read over that. I figured that,
I probably have the same problem in the ordinance.
Huh?
I said I need to look at the ordinance, I might have the same problem there. No? Okay. Is a typo, S and T are close together. Nope, not either. Alright.
Okay,
What is SEQ? What's that? Is that just a legal term or what?
Yeah, it's a legal term and it means and following. So if I were to read this, I would read it ACA 1456-401 and following, requiring the planning commissions.
Okay.
That's how I would read it to you. But that's legal for and following. So what it says is, you're looking at the entire chapter of the 400s in the statutes. So you don't have to say 401 through 426.
well, in order to give Lynn the formal approval to take the next step and come up with a legal description for the planning area and map boundaries, I will entertain a motion that we adopt basically map the third.
Page
the third
4.
map.
It says page 4.
Page 4.
Okay.
So moved.
Jerry made a motion to adopt the map as represented on page 4. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Linda seconded it. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Now you got something to do till 3 o'clock this morning.
Well, fortunately, GIS goes home at 5 o'clock. So.
Lucky for him.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, I'm going to ask the GIS to draft this in map form and try to give me the coordinates of these intersections.
Right.
And then I'll draft the language to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
She said it's simple. She's like your mayor did doing the zoning, or not zoning, the wards. Just simply tell me where the intersection is, and she says that's good enough from what she's read.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can come up with a description. And then you want me somehow to meet face to face with Beaver and Eureka, or send them to an email, or do you want to do that with me? Should we come up with a time?
I've got another comment from Kylie here.
Okay.
On that point. She says, let me back up to where her last comment was. Okay. This is very hard to scroll.
We
these
could find
tabs.
out when their next planning commission meeting is,
Okay.
at least in
She
Eureka.
says, does Holiday Island have a master plan in place?
The answer is not yet, Kylie. We have to do the planning area map before we go to those steps.
Okay. And then she says, though I'm not the decision maker, the green line seems justified from Eureka Springs' perspective. Then she says, for Eureka Springs, Holiday Island's proposal will need to be approved by the Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I'll draft some language like that ordinance I read from,
Can she tell
Conway.
us when the next planning commission meeting is?
Yeah, Kylie, can you tell us when the next Planning Commission is meeting? The next is October 12th.
Okay. We will.
that's really taking us up against the wall for December 1st. Wow. Because I was hoping to get this done in 2 weeks or less. That we probably have a special meeting to cover it.
I mean, if we approve what we think is ours, I mean, we still do that regardless of them.
Yeah, why can't we just march on with the other stuff?
I think technically we can. It's our map, and it's to the best of our ability, it's equidistant, so it doesn't violate anything under statute. And if it has to be changed, we can change it.
Change it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So Kylie, if you heard that, we're planning to move ahead with the map that we have today, and I'll draft the documents, but we will intend to meet with you on 10/12. Do you have a time of day, Kylie?
6 p.m.
Okay. That's a look at the calendars that want to conflict with our council meeting.
But it'll
It doesn't.
also have to go to the City Council too, so
Sure.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, the planning commission, well, we'll present it to the commission and then she can take it to their council.
Okay.
Because that's how it works in statute. Planning commission recommends to the council.
Feel free to email me any information to place in the commissioner's packets.
Okay.
Okay.
I did.
Thanks a lot, Kylie.
Thank you. Thank you for participating. And then I need to see the map that Beaver has, to see whatever they might have, to make certain it doesn't have any conflicts with us.
Yeah, because you would think that they would have something that would encompass that Beaver Heights area out there.
And this jurisdiction does, I don't believe, well, that section line may have something to do with Beaver Heights, so. No, probably not, because that's around directly south of Beaver Heights is. Yeah, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem with Beaver either.
Do you have Kylie's email?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
Okay. I think that's it for the agenda for today.
Can I just say, ask, what are we doing next time? What's the next step that we're gonna work on?
Well, the next step you can see in that statute on our duties, if you want to go back to 412. It says, following the preparation of the planning area map, we'll work on our plans, and that's the master street plan, the land use plan, and the community facilities plan. And the master street plan, we all know that Holiday Island is pretty well laid out, and there are street maps available from the DOT.
Or the HICID plat map has all the streets, the master plat.
Well, I've asked for that, and the most current version I have is 2012, so.
But the
There's one online.
master street plan, is not just a picture of all the streets. It's, you have to designate which ones are main arteries, which ones are secondary, which ones are collector streets and things like that. Because, other things than other ordinances and stuff kind of follow that. Like, that'll set priorities for snow removal, it'll set priorities for the construction, the dimensions of those streets and stuff like that.
Kenny maintains a street spreadsheet
Yeah.
that has all the streets on it for his maintenance program.
Yeah. The only thing we don't have is the mapping software to be able to click on this street and say, make this line red and make this one blue and this one blue and this one blue and.
But they have designated what you suggested we needed to do, you know, main routes, you know, snow routes and things like that, right?
There may be something unofficial. I've never seen an official document that showed anything like that. But Kenny does have.
It'd be easy enough to convert his spreadsheet though.
Yeah, on Kenny's spreadsheet that includes every street or road in Holiday Island, he has the dimensions of that road, and just by our intuitive knowledge, we kind of know which ones are the main thoroughfares. Basically are 20 feet, and the rest of them are all 17 or 18 feet. So, but in actuality, I think that master street plan, I think we would want to have input from the district on, since they do a lot of the snow plowing and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe what they consider.
Which ones are bus routes?
Primary and secondary.
Now, when we talk about what to do next and next and next, it may be not perfectly in order, but one of the high priority things for us to do is to get the zoning map done, because that's what the building codes and everything else are based off of, and so we can't really get into code enforcement until we have, as a city, have adopted.
So how do you see that? You see that as taking our big plat map and then kind of like the map there that's in the colors and all, marking coloring the different R1s, R2s and things, different colors? Is that
That's the way
what we're looking at?
I've done that with colored pencil already.
Oh,
But
good.
there also has to be a text document attached to it, because we need to spell it out in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna reflect what's said in the covenant.
We need a graphics artist, is what we need.
We need software,
Yeah.
someone to punch the buttons.
that has graphics artist software that could help us. For free.
Yeah, donating, yes. So, and some of the concerns that I have is the covenants I have are the ones that are available to us online. They may not be the current versions, and there are a dozen or more that I don't have any covenants for at all.
Yeah.
So I can't tell what they've said they're supposed to be.
Have we tried going to the county to see if they have those in their files?
Not yet. That's my last stop. If the planning commission doesn't have them, I'm gonna have to go there to see what they have. I don't know what to ask for.
They're supposed to be on file with the planning commission.
But the county has already told you that they don't get the plotting updates and stuff like that from Holiday Island.
The current assessor said no one's ever brought them to me.
But to be valid, don't they have to be recorded?
Yep.
Officially with the county? I mean,
Yeah,
you can't just
make it up.
have it in your file cabinet and produce it and say, this is the official document, right?
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Okay.
But if we can't find them and they're not recorded, we can make them up.
Kylie wants to know who did the work at the state GIS office for you.
Jennifer Wheeler, she's the senior administrator.
She says thank you.
You're welcome.
Super duper people to work
Yeah.
with.
All you have to do is just talk nice and be nice, and she's great to work with. She really is. Very responsive.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the maps she drew in less than 8 hour day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. When I wanted a ward map, I gave her all the information, and I thought that it would take her a week or so to work on it. The next morning, I had it on my email in color.
And it's super.
So, okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to talk about scheduling.
Schedule. We have a next regular meeting. We
Right.
can always call a special meeting.
So, do we need to schedule a special meeting now for approving this resolution to take to the city council?
We can?
Okay. The city council meets again next Tuesday.
21st.
I would expect that And with Jennifer Wheeler's help, I can probably get this resolution updated and written in front of the next scheduled city council meeting.
We can just have we can have a planning commission meeting ahead of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping, that maybe we could schedule for 5 PM instead of 6. Or 5:30.
5:30.
5:30?
Not gonna take us 30 minutes.
No, 5:30?
Let's do it at 5, so I have time to, redo the Zoom meeting.
Start a new
Start a
meeting?
new meeting between meetings.
Okay.
Why would that take an hour?
That, again, y'all are tired of hearing about how we did it in Oklahoma, but we sat as 3 different, bodies, and we didn't interrupt from anything. We just adjourned the city council meeting, went to the municipal airport authority, meeting, and then.
You weren't doing Zoom though, were you?
No, but I mean, you can't keep the tape running.
Well, you gotta separate it for the
Linda,
separate meeting, I think.
I've seen that on some postings, on some clippings I'm keeping, and I think they do that in one Zoom meeting, and they have different meetings tied back to back. I think I've seen that posted in somewhere.
Look into it, let me know.
Okay. Would there really be a problem though if we just say, the first 30 minutes is this meeting and the balance is that meeting, as far as what we post and put the recording out there?
I don't see why.
I suppose we can do it.
Okay.
Well,
Except that we've got
you probably have to
separate, town hall, we have separate, YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Sections. I
Can we
think.
post them both on the same one, the same
We
thing?
can do that, we can
Okay.
do it that
So
way.
we do it one Zoom meeting and have 2 separate meetings?
I would think that would save
You
time.
probably
Okay.
need to do 2 agendas, I would think.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Yeah, we have our own meeting, but
Yeah, I think
as
we
far
can
as
do
Zoom
that.
goes, it'd be one recording,
One recording for both meetings, and we'll post it twice under different names.
different names, okay, with an explanation.
Okay, so under
Works
that,
for me,
5:30
5:30 is good.
5:30 before the council.
on the 20th, 21st, or
9:20, which is it?
9:21, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
And what's the date of the next regular meeting? That will be October something.
next regular meeting would be October
Are we gonna pass the ordinance then in the regular council meeting afterwards then?
That city council will have to decide that.
I don't see why we can't, then it's done. It's the same information.
Well, the resolution I'll bring to the table will be formed very much like what you have, so it'll have the recommended ordinance. So the folks in the city council will have something to draft and present. Actually, it's what we recommend. That's what the way the text in the statutes, the planning commission recommends ordinances to the council.
I think
Okay, I'll put it on the agenda for the, city council meeting.
Terrific.
Anything else?
Can I make a commissioner comment? I want to tell Lynn how much we appreciate all the work he put in.
The card and the accolades needs to go to my wife.
For putting up with.
Yes, sir. Thank you, I'll tell her.
All right, now, motion to adjourn?
Do we have any public comment?
Nope, Kylie was basically the only participant.
they didn't.
There's an audience of
And
one.
she said thank you several times.
Thank you. Now,
Motion to adjourn.
now I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.